And there is a little bit of thought, at least for me anyways, that goes into the process of deciding what we will put there. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having an awesome day. It is Friday, January 5th here in South Georgia, and on today's video we're going to talk a little bit about what I like to call gap planting. That's where you have just a little sliver of space open up in one of your garden plots. I'm going to kind of walk you through the process of how we determine what to plant in those little spaces, and then hopefully we're going to get some of these planted. So over the last few weeks we've been showing y'all some of our harvests from these beautiful brassicas here, and today I harvested the rest of our broccoli that was in this row right here. You can see my stack of broccoli plants down there at the end. Now yes, I could have left those broccoli plants in the ground after harvesting the main heads, and we would have got some side shoot production, little extra groceries off those plants. But instead of just leaving those there and waiting on some side shoot production, I'd rather go ahead and plant something else in that spot that's going to give us a lot more groceries in the long run. So after cutting the main heads off these broccoli plants earlier today, came in here with my pruners and just cut those plants right at soil level. I thought I was going to be able to just leave those roots in the soil, leave my drip tape in place, but had quite a few weeds right on top of that tape. So I ended up pulling up the tape, cultivating a little bit, and then doing our fad system all over again real quick. Put our drip tape back down, put a little bit of coop grow back down, and covered it up. So we've got a gap there that we need to plant. That's why I call it gap planting. And there is a little bit of thought, at least for me anyways, that goes into the process of deciding what we will put there. It's not just like I'm gonna go in my box of seeds and just grab something, throw it in the ground. So the first thing we have to consider is our rotation. Now, if you've been watching us a while, you know I don't like to plant the same family of vegetables in the same spot in consecutive seasons or consecutive years if I can help it. So in this plot behind me, we've got onions and brassicas now. Last year we had sweet corn in this plot, so I'm not real restricted as far as what I can plant. Probably just don't want to put another brassica in that spot. Now the second thing I have to consider, and probably the most important thing for my particular gardening system, is days to maturity or timing of maturity. So we have to consider what all is planted here and how long is it going to be here. Most of those brassicas over there, the cauliflower, the cabbage, they're going to be gone within the next month. The Brussels sprouts will be here a little longer than that. But these onions are going to be around for a while. We usually don't harvest our bulbing onions until late April, maybe early May, so still got a ways to go on those. So what I don't want to do in this situation is plant something in that little gap there that's going to outlast those onions, because that then creates this kind of vicious cycle of planting half a plot and something, half a plot and something else, and it just keeps going and going and going. And I know because I'm guilty of doing it in the past. Ideally, when those onions are done, I would like to cover crop this plot and give it a break. So I need to plant something that's not going to outlast those onions. That way when the onions are done, we've got a nice clean plot. We can plant a cover crop there, get a little rest. And then the third consideration we have to make is whether the timing is right. Now this is not something that's a huge deal this time of year, but it can be in the warm season because there are a lot of vegetables that just don't like our midsummer heat. For instance, I wouldn't want to gap plant a row of tomatoes in June. But right now I would say we're fairly safe in planting any cool season veggie in that little gap there. Obviously we don't want to plant any warm season veggies until the risk of frost has passed, but cool season veggies should be fine. And so given all those considerations, I think peas will be perfect. Not field peas, not cow peas, but what we like to call English peas. And unlike you folks up north, we have to be really careful when we plant these things because they do not like our heat. As soon as it gets 80 degrees around here, these plants will start looking terrible. Now down here we can grow a late winter, early spring crop of English peas. We can also grow some in the fall. Some years the fall crop does better, some years the late winter, early spring crop does better. Just depends on how wacky the weather is every year. Now it's been several seasons since we've grown any English peas, and that has a lot to do with the fact that we had a nice little stash in the freezer. I was trying to work through that before we planted any more because I always like to plant enough to preserve some. Now that that stash is getting depleted a little bit, it's time to restock it. And of all the times I've grown English peas, I think the best grow out, the best harvest I had was maybe a year or two ago when I planted in early January. I thought it was too early until a guy down the road told me he had just planted his, so I thought, shoot, I'll get mine planted too. And it ended up working really well. So that's why we're gonna plant now in early January. And the variety we're growing here is called PLS 595. I don't know if you can see that or not. I can't remember what that PLS stands for. Maybe it stands for Pure Line Seeds or something like that. I've grown quite a few English pea varieties over the years. There's one called Mr. Big that we liked pretty well, made some really nice big pods. But this PLS 595 variety has been the most consistent variety for me. We get monster harvest off these. Not the biggest peas you've ever grown, but really good production on this variety. And I like to plant these on a double row when I can, just to get as many peas out of a single sliver of row that I can. We've already got that set up here from doing our fad system. When we covered that drip tape, the wheel hoe made 2 nice little mini furrows for us to plant. Now I thought I had some inoculant to put down in the furrow before planting these. That helps these peas fix their own nitrogen, but I couldn't find it, so we're going to just plant them anyway. When you're planting English peas, I always say there's really no such thing as planting them too thick, and that's kind of true. You plant them as thick as you want here and they'll still grow up and produce peas just fine, but if you plant them too thick, they become kind of a booger to harvest. So I'm going to try not to plant them too thick. I'm going to put these seeds, I don't know, a couple inches apart here, 2 to 3 inches apart. Just work our way down this little row and that little row. Alright, so we got all those little pea seeds in the ground. Now before I covered these up with a rake, I wanted to go ahead and get my trellis stakes in the ground. That way I knew I wasn't going to hit my drip tape, and I could get them nice and straight by putting them down in those furrows. Now there's lots of different ways you can trellis English peas. You can use a cattle panel, you can use that Hortonova trellis netting that we use on a lot of other stuff, or you can use this little twine method that I think works really well. It's cheap, it's easy, and it's effective. So this is the same commercial grade twine that we use when doing the Florida weave on our tomatoes and peppers. And so the way this will work, once those pea seeds germinate, we'll put a line of twine about right here, not very far above the soil level. That'll give those pea plants something to grab hold to early on, and then as they grow, we'll just keep adding lines of string for them to grab. So we'll have a line of string on this side of the double row and a line of string on this side of the double row. And if you want to see what that looks like, watch this video right here. We'll show you the last time we grew that pea variety in an in-ground plot using that type of trellis. Don't forget to go check out our website for blogs, products, and more. And we'll catch you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.